that are not connected to Marquette. But the bulk of the team is people like Andrew Rousey and Mr. Dwight Burks and others like that that did play for my Marquette Eagles. So it was definitely good seeing that they made the cut into the championship round. You know, this is one of them tournaments where you're going for like big money. You're going for the winning team will get $2 million, and of course those that are backing the team will also get a percentage as well. Like right now, if my Marquette Eagles win, because they show you how much money you can win, and of course you got to do links and tag things on Twitter and do other things to make money. But right now, if my Marquette Eagles, and I'm gonna try to do some things to make a little bit more money, but if my Marquette Eagles were to win right now, I would be carrying home about $250. Like, not a lot of money, but I'm not gonna sleep on $250. It might help me pay a bill or two.
It sure will. It sure will. So you know what? Don't discount it, because what you put into it was a lot less than what you get out of it. You know what I mean? So that's a great thing.
All I got to do is just sit there and root for my team and hope that they win. It's kind of like when I do fantasy football, because I know that that's coming up next month too. We're going to have our draft, and I think I got the sixth pick, which is one of them weird draft picks. So I got to figure out who I'm going to pick with my sixth pick and those kind of picks, because last year I had some good players but did not do anything in terms of being a champion. I don't think I've come close as long as my brother has had me doing this fantasy football along with a lot of his friends. But one of these years, I'm going to surprise them and giving them the Blues, which is my fantasy football team name, will actually give the opponents the Blues and not give me the Blues, because lately it's just been giving me the Blues. I've been getting like a little pick-you-up money here and there, but my team has not won jack. So hopefully this is the year that I can actually win something.
You never know. You never know.
True.
So, hey, it remains to be seen. You sure did hit a bell, and we're going to bring our guest in just 1 second. Hey, y'all, it's Straight Talk with Dana Mark.
This is Nikki Hall, founder of Simply Radiant LLC, a woman with great passion and skill to make you look and feel better. Meet me where you are. Let's take it to another level, a new you. See you soon. Call 919-971-6243. Make your place today.
Hi, Mark. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Welcome to Straight Talk with Dana Mark.
This is Lisa Ann. How are you?
Hey,
we're doing
how you
good,
doing?
Lisa Ann. Lisa Ann, you have got a fascinating story. A lot of people, when they find out that things are going to happen in their life, they just kind of just give up and just kind of just don't go any further than that. But you're one of those people that is even though you have facing all kinds of different things in your life and with your health, you're just going to just enjoy life. So would you share a little bit with our listeners about your life story and a little bit about what you're doing? Because when I read about you, I was sitting there going I'm just amazed. This woman is from Wisconsin. I went to school in Marquette in Milwaukee, but she's not going to let life decisions and life things happen to her dictate what happens in her life. She's going to just live it to the fullest. So if you share a little bit about what your life is all about and some of the things you're doing, I would greatly appreciate it.
Okay, wow, you just asked me to speak for 5 hours, but I'll try to nutshell it. So yes, I'm originally from Wisconsin. I am not going to give you a whole life history, but I think some things need to be in context. So I was given up for adoption at birth, and was adopted about 6 months after the fact into a wonderful little family, a dairy farm family in northeastern Wisconsin. And so I grew up with cows and cats and dog and a tree house, and I learned how to drive a tractor before I learned how to drive a car. So that's kind of the kind of roots that I have.
Right.
But one of the unusual things about my parents was that they didn't really read anything other than trade magazines. They did go and get the encyclopedias, and I had the children's encyclopedias on the bottom round and the adult ones on the top shelf. I'm sure that anybody that is over the age of 40 understands exactly what I'm talking about. And I was the kid that, sat in the corner and just looked at books for entertainment. And then my mom always, because we didn't have a lot of money, I didn't know that we didn't have money, but I didn't know that money was important either, so it didn't bother me. And she would take me to the library every Monday morning during the summers, and I could pick up as many books as I wanted to. And so I was that weirdo kid that in fourth grade sat in a treehouse reading Shakespeare.
Wow.
So I have always been interested in other people and other things and other places and other stuff. And my parents never stopped me from having that interest. And so this has always just kind of been me. But you brought up some pretty big challenges. So the 2016, I got super sick and didn't know what was wrong, and nobody could figure it out. I had blisters that started in my mouth and my throat, and pretty soon I couldn't speak, and pretty soon I couldn't eat. And I'm a big girl. I will not shy away from the fact that I'm a fat chick, and I recognize that. But that summer, I lost 120 pounds laying in bed because those blisters moved from the inside of my mouth and down my throat to the exterior of my skin. And almost 3/4 of my body was raw, open wound that was just weeping white blood cell fluid. So I was weeping out about 16 cups of fluid a day, and my mouth and throat hurt so bad that even drinking water was like eating glass. So to say the least, I was pretty much on a deathbed, and I knew it. And it took the doctors literally 6 months, and the second to last doctor on a fluke suggested that I go to a dermatologist, and suggested a particular dermatologist because he didn't want to do anything else with my skin because he was afraid he was going to do more damage than good. And so why not send you to a skin doctor, And they knew immediately what it was, and sent me to the hospital and got fluids pumped into me, and then put me on a 2-year path of trying to get back on my feet. So at one point, I now do a drug called rituximab every 6 months. Some people call it a chemo, some people don't. It was originally designed for people with lymphomic cancer. I have a disease that's called pemphigus vulgaris. So are you guys really familiar with Old Testament stuff?
A little bit, but I needed to be more aware of Old Testament. So share with us what the connection is to the Old Testament.
Well, you know the story of Job in the Old Testament? Okay, so I'm going to nutshell it. The story of Job basically goes, this super rich guy had this huge family, and all of his kids get killed. He had like 6 or 7 or 8 kids or whatever. Had a whole bunch of kids, and they're all at a wedding, and they all get killed all at the same time. So that's a pretty big stressor in your life, right?
Right.
But then he loses all of his riches. He loses his farm. He loses his animals. He loses everything. So now he's in financial stress. He's in emotional stress. And his wife is basically wigging on him in a pretty big way. So, by the way, when I do Bible talking, I don't talk like a normal preacher, so be patient with me.
No problem.
So all of a sudden he finds himself sitting outside of his door on his mat, and his body is covered in blisters and boils. But his friends still come and sit next to him and talk to him. So he doesn't have leprosy. He's not contagious. So it turns out when I finally get to the right doctors, the very first question they ask me is, how Jewish are you? And I'm like,
wow.
I'm adopted. I have no idea. I don't think I'm Jewish at all. And the lady doctor looks at me and she says, yeah, you wouldn't be this sick if you weren't Jewish. And I'm like, huh, okay, well, that's interesting. So it turns out that within the Ashkenazi Jewish line of blood, there are a whole bunch of autoimmune diseases that are pretty serious. And this one, pemphigus vulgaris, actually ties all the way back to that Middle Eastern story. Whether you believe that it's a Hebrew story or you believe that it's a Middle Eastern story, because the Babylonians have a basically the same story, but it uses their king and the god of Baal. So that story exists from all the way back in the Middle Eastern tradition for a reason, because it happens. And it's still happening today to people all over the world. And it's still super underdiagnosed, and I have it. And so that's a pretty big challenge in life, and you're right, Mark. A lot of people who have this disease get very, very afraid of being in the world.
Right.
Because part of what we do to control this is prednisone and other immune suppressants. And if you're on heavy doses of immune suppressants, it means that you can catch anything. So so when I do the Rituxan treatments and when I'm on heavy doses of prednisone, I don't go hanging around with tens of thousands of people, because I can pick up a cold or the flu, and that will turn into pneumonia in an instant. So most people that get these kinds of diseases at this level tend to stop living their lives like normal people.
Now, Lisa, I wanted to get to that. But I wanted to get to that, but I had a question for you really quickly, and I'm going to hear more of the story and everything. But part of what you're doing also is you're going around and documenting weddings. And weddings is, and I know that a lot of this you were doing before the diagnosis, but weddings are full of people. So how are you, what precautions are you taking, since part of what you're doing is also dealing with this wedding project, where I know that you're going around doing these amazing photographs of weddings of all kinds of different cultures, not just out of the Christian culture, but I imagine there probably been some Buddhist weddings you've been to, some maybe Hindu weddings, and different other kind of weddings. So, but I do know, because like I said, I work at a cultural arts center, so I know a lot of times there might be the small weddings, but then there's also the ones that are full of lots of people.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that's different about me is I immediately got myself involved with a drug study at the University of Buffalo. I live outside of Buffalo, by the way. I no longer live in Wisconsin. And two of the top research doctors in pemphigus vulgaris happened to be in my backyard right here in Buffalo. I am one of these people that does not believe in coincidences. I totally believe that God puts you exactly where you're supposed to be at exactly the time that you're supposed to be there. Because if I had been still living in where I was living in Wisconsin, the closest person who even knows anything about this disease basically is in Chicago, a 5-hour drive. So, or Minneapolis, an 8-hour drive, So, it's interesting that I was 20 miles away from top doctors. So Rituxan is not a true immunosuppressant. I have had to learn, well, I didn't have to learn it. I chose to learn a whole lot about your immune system and a whole more lot about, and I know that was grammatically incorrect, about the drugs. I chose to do this rituximab mainly because it's not a true immunosuppressant. It's an infusion like a chemo, and it literally goes after just your B cells, and it leaves all of your other immune cells intact. So that's how I can go into once I don't do anything in the 2 weeks that I do the 3 weeks. It's about 3 weeks every 6 months. in that month, I pretty much don't